So today we're going to start slowing things down a little bit. So the steam stuff from yesterday is going to be a little bit easier. We'll do one more round of mind-bending language just so you can have the whole model in your head. And then it becomes less intellectually challenging, but for some of you it'll probably be a little bit emotionally challenging because we're going to talk about some more emotional issues and how to resolve those. So that's kind of what we expect for today. And just remember what happened yesterday. In other words, you got through yesterday, no problem. So whatever happens today, it's just part of the process, right? So, there he goes. There's one important question that I used yesterday a lot and that we haven't talked about yet that I want to introduce you to, or rather I want to emphasize for you guys, so that when you go and do the exercise, you have a very important maneuver up your sleeve. Anyone care to hazard a guess what that question might have been? What's happening now? We've talked about that quite a bit, so that is actually a very, very important question, probably the most important one. But we've talked about that so you understand its value. So there's another one which is similar, but does something else, and I use it a lot, especially with Dave. So again, how do you do that? It's very close.
How did you do that?
It's actually... That's exactly right. How do you know? Now, what's the value of this question? What does it do?
Sends you inside to figure out how you're constructing whatever.
It sends you inside. It actually gives you information about what's actually going on. Basically, what this is asking for is the reality, so-called reality strategy. How do you know this is real? How do you know? Right? Now, this is particularly important when you have this conflict between something good's happening but I don't trust it, or something important's happening but I don't believe it. And again, if I may use Dave as an example for this, you heard the process of Dave going through change, and it happened pretty quickly that it started changing, right? But the doubts became larger, directly proportional to the amount of change that was going on, right? So it told me that something else, there's a second pattern running in the background that's preventing the whole thing from clicking into place. But I had no idea what it was. I had no information on it. All I had was hints like, I hope, and I'm not sure, right? These are hints towards it, but I didn't actually know what that was. I need to get that out in the open, because then that's the thing I need to spin. But if I don't know what it is, because I only have an indicator of it, how can I spin it? Because all I can do is hallucinate about it. Does that make sense? So by asking him, how do you know? How do you know? So the first point I start is, so you're feeling this way, and when you imagine it, you're okay. But when you think about really doing it, then you have some kind of doubt. And he goes, yes. How do you know? He goes, huh? It doesn't really make sense to him because he hasn't even considered that as an option. Is that correct? And I ask him, how do you know? How do you know you have a doubt? Now, I need to know this because that's the thing that I have to work out. That's the bit that's going to sabotage the work we've done, if anything's going to do it. Does that make sense to you guys? And how do you know flushes it out, and I can't even remember what his answer was, but in flushing it out, it gave me something to spin. It became the object of attention, and actually that's what brought up the idea of going to the pet store and actually doing it with a real cat, etc. That's where that idea came from. Now that's become a massive resource. Does that make sense? So there are two times to ask this question, which is important to ask this question. The first time is, like in this case, when something's going on, but they're not exactly telling you the information you need to be able to do something with it. So it's kind of like you have indications that something's going on, but you're not actually getting the full story. So you ask about it. How do you know about this? Well, it's all well doing it here, but in the real world, it's not going to work, is it? How do you know, right? Or, well, I feel great, but I don't know if it's going to last. How do you know, right? How do you know? How do you do that? How do you know that it's not going to last when you leave this place? Well, it's happened with other times before. Great. Now you have that to spin. Or, well, I'm imagining it, it's fine, but when I really think about doing it, so now he's telling you there's a distinction in his mind between things that he imagines and things that he, quote, quote, puts something reality tone around. Do you see how that works? The other time this becomes really useful is when you have a positive state and you want to cement it, right? So would you say that when you think about cats now, and especially going to the shelter, that a relatively positive state comes up in you? That's when you think especially about the whole high-fiving thing, right?
I'm
positive.
Right.
I'd say everything else is kind of neutral.
Everything's neutral, but then the actual test, which is the high-fiving, which is what I actually want to see on camera. Honestly, I don't care about the whole petting a cat and going, oh, how beautiful are you, dude. What I want to see is how a grown man high-fives a cat. That's what I really want to see, right? So that's the positive part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're sure about that?
Yeah.
How do you know?
Well, now the image of me high-fiving cat is just making me smile.
Oh, but how do you know it's a good feeling?
Because it just feels good inside.
Do you see what he's doing? Each time I'm asking him, he has to reinforce it. So I'm actually conditioning the positive feeling by test. It's actually a test and a condition at the same time. There's another way of doing it. It's like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure about this? Come on, because we had a little bit of a trouble yesterday with the whole doubt thing going on. Are you sure that when you think about high-fiving a cat, that you actually feel good about this?
Yeah.
Do you see what's going on? You see, every time I am challenging him with how do you know or are you sure, it's going to have one of two effects. One is it'll break down because it was too weak, which is great because then I've got something real to work on. Or two, when the work's taken as it has here, it gets more powerful each time, right? So if I doubt you again and say, are you sure about this? Notice what happens, right? That feeling comes right back and each time it gets more powerful. And how do you know that it's fun to do that?
Because it feels really fun inside just thinking about it.
And that's the answer we're looking for. Notice how he's giving me a circular answer, right? He's not giving me a reason for it. He's giving me a circular answer. I feel good because I feel good. What he's basically telling me is, I feel good because something unconscious is happening, and as a result of it, I feel good. So it tells me the unconscious mind is doing the loop. So I'm happy. He doesn't, where I would be worried is if he says, well, because I think about the cat, and I tell myself it's not a big deal, and then if I say, okay, well, I've had other situations, it's been kind of fun, and then I kind of remember those and I feel good, and then when I feel good, I go back to the cat and I start doing, that's all conscious effort, right? That's no good, because in the moment, he's not going to have a chance to think. What I want is an unconscious response. And when he can't give me an answer to it, like, I just feel good because I just feel good, that tells me it's unconscious. Because you don't really know why you feel good, right? But you do.
Mm-hmm.
And you know you do, right?
Yeah.
Are you sure about that?
Very sure.
Thank you. Those are all conditioning cycles. They're also tests at the same time. So that you're doing the same thing at the same time. Does that make sense? So how do you know? It's a really important question. It can test, it can bring information out, the real information that you need to have out, and it can deepen an experience in order to have more of it. So the classic time to use it again would be if someone comes out pretty neutral, like, yeah, I'm kind of neutral. So, well, how do you want to be different? How do you want to feel? Well, I just want to feel, like I'm having fun. Well, how do you know when you are having fun? You're doing the same thing, but now you're using it as a revivification. So it's a really powerful question. Again, it's not my question. Thank you, John. It's your question, and I like it. It's John Overdove came up with this, and I think it's genius. As a conversational thing, it's so innocent sounding, but it's really, really powerful, right? So any questions on that? Go ahead. Can we have a microphone down here? Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, he can get the feet right here.
The question, how do you know that or how do you do that, actually, depending upon how you put the inflection on it, has two different meanings. In other words, you're asking a question, well, how do you know that? Forcing them to, because they don't know the answer. And the other one is, you do know the answer. Feed back to me how you know the answer.
Exactly. The tonality does a lot of things.
And you can hear that.
With some very simple maneuvers, you've got a lot of sophistication in terms of what you can do, right? So, you guys ready for an exercise? Oh, go ahead, one more.
The question is regarding the scenario that you threw, that if he didn't answer the question in a circular fashion and he ended up giving the conscious mind answer that, well, it's because last time the experience was, and I hope that blah, 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 then what would you do at that point? Would you then re-enter the whole cycle with the,
You just spin them again.
Spin them again?
You just take whatever the encapsulates that idea, and you spin that.
And you keep on doing that till he gives you that circular answer type answer.
Whatever, I don't think of it in terms of what he says. I'm thinking of it in terms of what he feels.
Okay.
If I get a positive state, I reinforce it, and I go right back to the original trigger, the original context, right? Or whatever the starting point was from that loop. If he gives me a negative, some kind of negative answer, then if the feelings are negative, whatever's come out, I have to spin. I don't know how I'm going to spin it until it's there, but I have to spin it, right? Out it goes. And then whatever the answer from that is, I either spin or enhance. And then whatever the answer of that is, I spin or enhance, until all we get is a consistent, positive state in all the different situations. That's really, when I say all the different situations, that's what your test cycle does. It goes to all the different situations. It's simultaneously your conditioning cycles, because it makes sure that in all the different situations, he has rehearsed and practiced feeling good more and more and more. Does that make sense?
It does. And that cascade that you have drawn there to your left, does that can go both ways? And in other words, you go in the center, it can cascade back and...
Sure.
Okay.
You know, your test cycle can bounce all over the place. You can go, hey, but you know, there are times, and you probably do want to do this, there are times, you know, there are times before this event that happened, and try those out, you know, and there are times after this event, try those out. And you know, there'll be times in the future, so this is the present tense, there'll be times in the future where things like that will happen. Like the classic case here was the going to a pet store to go and high-five it. I still love that image. Man, high-fiving. Just does it for me. So you go all along until there's nothing left for you. If everything is clean, 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 and you've racked your brains and you've just done some more, then you go down the whole, how do you know, are you sure about this? How do you know? You just got to ask them, like, are you telling me that, you know, in 20 minutes all this has happened? When they start trying to convince you that they've changed, then I start becoming happy that I may actually let this go and let them get on with life.
What I meant was when you frame it,
yeah?
let it go for the next couple of weeks,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, it can go either way, right?
Oh, it will go both ways, absolutely. And it may well go like this too. So it might not just be cats. He might start high-fiving dogs and I don't know, people and what else. And if nothing else, it might not be that. It might just be the essence of it, which is doing silly things which are fun. So it may expand in that way too, right? Because fears do that. At first you're afraid of cats, then you're afraid of cats and dogs, then you're afraid of, you know, more mammals, then you're afraid of things that breathe. Then you stand up in the front of a lecture room and confess your problems. Right? So you guys ready for an exercise? Not yet? Okay. Who has the microphone? Oh, go ahead.
Actually, I think you answered it there when you were looking for loops. If somebody feels good, just sort of like enhance that and force that. Yeah, you do feel good.
Exactly.
If they say when they say I doubt this, well, how do you know? I just do. I just doubt it. Then you kind of break out of that cycle and lead them somewhere else until they get the feel good cycle.
Right up there, you have that model of from Overdove's picture of like spinning, you know, the unhappy face spinning up. So all I'm looking for, literally, it's not only the expression is enough. It's the body as well, of course. But is their expression down? Go straight to spin. Is expression up? Then you just bring it right back down to the problem. So what your job becomes very simple. All you do is you look at them and see, are they positive or are they negative? And then you know instantly what your maneuver is going to be, right?
I just wanted to ask about the earlier stages testing. What kind of questions are you using to get that experience up?
Well, the simplest one is you test the original context and you say, okay, so you know, you're okay with cats? Sure. Okay, well, if I understand you correctly, you're in your friend's apartment, and where's the cat? Oh, it's over there. And what do you do? Oh, high five it. Ah, and how's that feel? Great. Okay, but you know, there's been other times when, you know, cats have been a problem. It's like, give me an example. All right, yeah, my mum's got cats and I hate going around the house. It's all right, so let's say you're at your mum's house and you go in, what happens? Well, it's just a cat, right? Do you get like, you know, do you feel like high-fiving it? Actually, not really. All right, fine. Another case, okay, I'm in a pet store, right? How do you feel? Great. Why? Because I'm high-fiving cats left, right, and center, and it's great. Okay, so give me another example. You know, there's been a lot of these examples in your life, right? Give me another example that had you had the experience before today, you would have had fear, but now you can just have fun instead. Do you see how it sounds like a complex language pattern, but just an instruction. So if there's anything left, he might go spinning, but chances are he'll follow it because he's already clear. So then he goes, all right then, my boss likes walking cats, and sometimes I have to talk to my